Hey everyone, I'm currently in my bathroom because it has the best lighting to talk to you about what it takes to succeed in the real world, and specifically the different types of intelligence that are useful and effective in the real world. So, to explain how that works, I have to give you a little hint first. It's not what you think. It's not that those who have the highest IQ or the best test scores usually do the best in reality. And I have a little story to kind of illustrate this. So my friend really likes the show Survivor. I think he's seen all the seasons, and he constantly talks about it and how the mind games that they play in it are almost kind of like a Game of Thrones in a way, and how entertaining it is to watch, and how you need not just smarts but physical strength and all sorts of other stuff. So I finally watched an episode. It was the episode one of the Kagayan season, which was I think season 28, and I, I could see why it's so entertaining. So in that episode, I think you can learn a lot about social intelligence, emotional intelligence, IQ, and how they are kind of different from each other. Um, because in this show, although there's a bunch of like wacky obstacle courses and stuff that don't necessarily map to real life, there's a lot of mind games and social interaction that goes on that do map into real life because they have to vote people out on a recurring basis until there's only one left who wins $1 million. And what I found interesting was that some of the people there who were quote unquote the smartest, have these prestigious jobs and high IQs, aren't necessarily intelligent in other ways. And it causes a lot of angst and problems with the groups. People don't like them. So just goes to show you that there's a lot more involved, not just intelligence, but being likable, being winning favor with the group, generating charisma, humor. All those things can play into it in your interpersonal relationships and your effectiveness in your team and your organization. And to give you an example from that episode, first ever Survivor episode I ever watched, there's this one girl, her name's like Tadia or something, Tadelia, and she's a nuclear engineer, and she comes out hot saying that she's the smartest person in her group. And they split the contestants into three groups: brains, brawn, and hot. One's very pretty, one's very like athletic, and one's very smart. And so you have all these people in the brains group who are already super smart, and yet she comes out guns blazing saying she's like the smartest, she's a nuclear engineer. And then as you see throughout the episode, I found that she had very low emotional intelligence. She acted out in very emotional ways and that were just horrible for her group. One time she just flipped out because she thought she was going home anyways. So she poured their bag of rice, their only food, onto the fire. And it was crazy. And, it just pissed people more off. And then she thinks she's so smart, and then they get to the puzzle and they trust her to finish the puzzle, and they already have this huge lead, and she fails to solve it. And, the way she kind of communicates with her team when she feels called out against or when she thinks they're going to vote against her is just horrible. So in the first round, before she even pours the bag on her rice or she lets everyone down with the puzzle, she starts to sense some angst from her group because, when she came in, she was kind of ordering people around without doing any work herself. And it rubbed people the wrong way because they needed to build a hut and she wasn't really contributing in the way that they wanted to. But she, by mistake, which she could have fixed with, some more communication and acknowledgement, because she was willing to work manually if she was told. But instead of recognizing that and figuring that out and communicating, she starts to kind of react in very passive aggressive, uh, kind of defensive and backhanded ways with her comments. And ultimately, she saves up a bunch of it until like the moment that they're voting, and then just kind of like lashes out at people. And of course, that doesn't help at all either. I think throughout, she's just very kind of pretty much not agreeable with the rest of her group, and from there it just kind of goes downhill, and ultimately rubs people out the wrong way. I found also a lot of the other members of the brains group, while they were smart in one aspect, they weren't in others. They had these high IQs, which is one measure of your verbal and reasoning skills in one tiny metric, certain types of puzzles and mathematic questions, but maybe not in other areas. Another guy was this high stakes poker player, very smart, and also very jacked as well. Somehow he got into the brains group, even though he was also very muscular. And this guy, you think he's pretty smart, and he seems pretty smart and capable, but he was a little off, and that really kind of got him voted out. And he failed to take into account the emotional intelligence side of things, and how certain decisions or ways of communicating would play out. So specifically, he tried to just call everyone together in a group and just say, okay, we're going to vote Talia out because she's been just horrible. And the way he presents it makes, first off, Talia an enemy, because she literally feels like she's been humiliated and exiled and punished in front of the whole group. And even though he didn't mean to do it that harshly, that's how it was presented. And now everyone else kind of knows where he stands and so forth. So they start scheming behind his back, which ultimately gets him voted out as a surprise. So it's just very interesting. And just to kind of bring it back to the kind of academic side of all the different types of intelligence, I think there's many forms. There's obviously emotional intelligence, there's IQ, and then there's social intelligence, and then there's not even an intelligence, but more so tools in your toolkit, in your social toolkit that you can use, that you should use to really win people over, or just make them more comfortable, ease their tensions, feel like you're on their side. There's a lot of different things you can do there, but those tools include humor, charisma, leadership, collaboration, and the list goes on. And of course, some people have that, some people don't, but they all definitely help. And so I think when you're looking through life, yes, of course, IQ has, statistically been one of the highest accurate correlations between success in terms of income and other areas, and with any type of measurable trait that we've been able to find in terms of academic literature. But I guarantee you, there's been a lot of books written about this, a lot of books from consultants and people who are experienced in emotional intelligence that tell the story of a client or a person that they've worked with who still fails to reach that higher level because they have high skills at their job, and they may have high academic intelligence, IQ, but they have horrible EQ, and they rub people the wrong way. People hate working with them. They think they're obnoxious or arrogant or so forth. And that's an area, being agreeable, being friendly, harmonious, that some people just fail to work at. And I'm not saying I'm a master at all this. I'm just kind of aware of it, and I'm working on it too. There's a great book by the acclaimed business consultant Marshall. I think his last name's Good Marshall Goodwin or something Goodall. But the book is called "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." If you just search up the book title, you'll find it. And in that book, it covers this like high flying salesperson who makes a lot of money every year, like hundreds of thousands. But when he was when this consultant came in, turns out everyone else hated him. Everyone else didn't want to deal with him. He was obnoxious. He was condescending, and all this other stuff. And it was only because of his high sales numbers that people tolerated him. And Marshall ultimately had to have a hard conversation. And turns out the salesperson, while arrogant, was blindsided. He had no idea that others felt this way. And even when he did, he had trouble adjusting. But, after, he had to go through that hard kind of update to his approach. And if he could get through that, he could have made more money, been promoted more, people would have liked him more, and he would have probably excelled even further. So it gets you thinking, and I don't think we'll have academics or the society as large will have a complete, accurate, thorough answer on all the different types of intelligence and skills out there that are required for success. But I think we have a much better grasp than ever before. And it's much more than just IQ or one thing. And some people have it, some people don't. But I think there's definitely some obvious, glaring things that you can work on. Ask yourself, I ask myself, when I see these people who are good in one area, but not good in another, why is that the case, and what can be fixed there? In this example I showed with Talia and Survivor, I've seen people like that oftentimes in real life, and they've been kind of harsh to deal with. I remember one time long ago, I was at this internship, and this person I was working with was just, she would just flip out if she didn't have control of the project. And I sensed that, and I just kind of backed off, and I let her do it. But she had this like need for like a micro level of control on everything, and it probably wasn't healthy if you're micromanaging everything. Like, you're not letting others do their work. And so that was something, and I could tell like she was just like that Talia girl in that Survivor episode. Because if someone had pressed her, she would just flipped, and she needed that control. It offended her when she didn't have it. Maybe she needed that recognition of power, or she really just wanted the project done her own way. And so that's something you have to look out for. Is that really the best behavior? Where do other people seem to be rubbed the wrong way by you, or when are things just not done as great as they could, and when you have a lot of disputes or arguments, or things aren't done, achieved to the level you want, and it involves interpersonal communication. Well, what went wrong? And maybe it's not other people, maybe it's you. So there you go. Get you thinking, and I truly believe that some of these areas, while others are hard, if not impossible to improve, like IQ and humor, like can you really be much more funny, or even a little bit more funny, or have higher IQ? Maybe not. But in some of these other areas, I think there's definitely room for all of us to grow.